Can you hear me? I'm not used to microphones. I've done a lot of acting, and I tend to get nervous in front of microphones. Michael alluded to the problems, the delicacies of starting off this kind of session. It's even trickier at the end because being academics, we talk a lot and we're behind schedule. Lunch is waiting and so on, so forge ahead. Canadians themselves, and as a Canadian I can say this, Canadians are a very, very modest lot. It should be clear that that is not a compliment. I don't mean that as a compliment. Though I was born and brought up in Ottawa and then studied at the University of Toronto, I've lived abroad most of my adult life in Czechoslovakia / the Czech Republic. And for almost 30 years I've taught Canadian studies courses. Canadian literature, Canadian film, Canadian history and political events, the French-English relationship in Canada, Canadian multiculturalism, and so on. Students have loved my courses. Other teachers have taken up Canadian studies in the department. Other colleagues in the department have come to me for information so they can add a comparative element to their courses on British or American literature and culture. We've even metastasized into other departments, the Romance Languages Department, the Political Science Department, and so on. Based on my work in Canadian studies, I've often been asked by local media for comments when something important happens in Canada, an election or something like this, some measure of the government that has been reached to the Czech media generally. However, back here in Canada, when speaking to Canadians about what I do, I don't know how often I've been met with the puzzled response, "Gosh, that's surprising, eh? I mean, I never thought that people outside Canada might find something interesting in this country." This drives me nuts. In so many ways and areas, Canada and individual Canadians have achieved something or created something that's perceived abroad as remarkable, even a model. Yet, it seems that many Canadians believe we live in some kind of, I don't know, bland, gray country that's characterized by boredom and mediocrity. So, getting to my paper, it has its roots in the project that has already been mentioned, this project that CanLit, in fact, initiated, the Translation Research Project in the Central European Association of Canadian Studies, where we looked at all of the translations into our 8 languages, since we've discovered there were 9 languages that books were translated into, of literary texts and more broadly of texts in the humanities and social sciences. The results were astonishing, I mean, in terms of just the sheer number of texts that we've found have been translated, and they were especially astonishing with regard to the Czech Republic. And it was in fact the results for the Czech Republic that got me to thinking about the wider context of the Canadian presence in the Czech Republic, in particular in the last 20 years. What inspired me then to write the paper is what I can only describe as this explosion of Canadian culture in the Czech Republic in the past quarter century, that is, since the end of the communist regime in 1989. Canada's become highly visible in all areas of culture, not just literature, which is my own specific field, but film, music, dance, popular culture, you name it. I'd originally want to deal with all of these areas of Canadian culture and their representation in the Czech Republic, but in writing this, I discovered it's too vast. It's going to have to be a project with continuing in the future. So what I focused on for the present purposes is aspects relating to literature and the social sciences, I mean texts and history, sociology, religion, and so on. And I'm interested essentially in 3 things. First, the presence of Canadian literary and other texts at Czech universities, where they're taught, how that came about, and what's taught, the range of things that are taught at the universities. Second, I'm looking at how texts of these kinds have become available to the wider public. That is, in the form of translations into Czech, visits by Canadian authors to the Czech Republic, writers' festivals and readings with Canadian authors, and things like this. And third, I'm interested in what factors help promote this growing interest. And there I'm thinking of internal factors, I mean, what inside the Czech Republic, influences from within the Czech Republic that have led to this greatly increased interest. And those external factors, things like the unfortunately recently abolished Understanding Canada program and the other support programs for Canadian studies, the programs of the Canada Council, the work of the actual embassy and how embassies help to foster Canadian studies, this kind of thing. Finally, I examine the importance of the role of Canadian academics in the field of Canadian studies, their role as a body of experts, of local experts, who can promote a wider interest and a wider awareness of Canada in all its fascinating complexity.